Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to the Spiritual Victories channel. As many of you will know who either watch the channel, even if you're not subscribed, or if you are subscribed, I make videos for this channel approximately a couple of times a month. It's not as big as the other channel, which is the marketing channel. That's called E&J United K. That's quite a bit more established. It's got 1,270 odd subscribers as we speak, so that's quite a bit more established. That's been going a lot longer, and it's more mainstream, it's more secular, so it's not surprising that it's much further ahead than this channel. But I started this channel some time ago to a number of different reasons, really, just to kind of educate people, offer some tips and advice around faith, and help people understand the concept of Christianity a little bit more without thrusting it down their throats. And also, one thing I hope to do in the coming weeks, months, years, weeks and months certainly, is to kind of maybe film some community groups and charities and just get a little bit involved in that side of things a bit more, and maybe try and give something back that way. The marketing's great with digital marketing and all that side of stuff, but it's nice to take a step back and look at the struggles we have in life, the meaning of life, and some of the kind of belief structures out there and stuff. So that's kind of in a nutshell why I started the channel. But look, let's cut to the chase. So for today, I was going to make a video about money and wealth and the deceptions of chasing after wealth and stuff, because all these people die, whether they're millionaires, billionaires, celebrities, politicians, royalty, they all die. Everyone dies once. Well, I won't say everyone dies once. If you're from one of the Abrahamic religions, you'll certainly know that these religions believe that people die and then there's a spiritual world. Now for myself, I'm what I describe as like a Christian. There's good reasons for that and how I got into it, which you'll discover in due course. But wealth doesn't guarantee success. It doesn't save your soul. It doesn't add any years to your life. It's a nice thing to have, but it's not the only thing. So after kind of last night's announcement on the news that Sir Keir Starmer is going to announce the digital ID plan, which is allegedly going to be mandatory for all adults in the UK today, as in what today means the 26th of September 2025, I thought I'd kind of switch it and make a video about that and how that kind of correlates to what's mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, to the so-called inverted brackets mark of a beast, and how this scheme might start off quite innocently and perhaps pivot towards and begin to include other things. So we're going to get into that, so let's go. Okay, so this is quite big news. See, I'm just reading off the screen a bit now. Sir Keir Starmer says people will not be able to work in the UK without digital ID. Now, I do kind of agree that things have moved on a little bit, because it is true we have all got more digital IDs, whether we know it or realise it or are aware of it or not. Because we use smartphones a lot more, and laptops and tablets. We've all got our email accounts and different apps that we use, different services we sign into. Excuse me. Be they government ones or not. So it is true that we do have more digital IDs. Digital ID could be a password and a username for something. So some of the stigma has gone out of that in the last 20 years. That is absolutely true, and I definitely agree with that, because even myself working in sort of digital marketing, we've all got many more digital IDs. As I mentioned in a recent video I did on the other channel about a very similar topic. In fact, it was about the same topic but without the religious element. We've all got biometric passports now. We've got photo card driving licenses with holograms. etc., etc., etc. So it's a valid point that everything's been digitalised. You see, you apply for a new passport, the process is digital. You want to scrap your car, the process is digital. You want to apply for a new driving licence, process is digital. You want to apply for benefits, process is digital. Many healthcare records, many things have gone digital in the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So that kind of thing's that angle of it has definitely moved on. Now, let's just kind of delve into it. I don't know if it's even been announced yet. It's been announced, but not. He's going to set it out all formally today. So basically, Sir Keir, I'm reading off the screen now. Sir Keir confirms plans for a new digital ID card scheme aimed at tackling illegal working. Now, I totally get that, a lot of British people want the migrants to stop coming and, foreigners to stop taking the jobs, if there are any jobs, because, the economy is at rock bottom in the UK at the moment. However, this kind of digital ID scheme, because of the nature of it and what's called XML feeds, that's like an API, it's going to be, the technology is already there for, once it's born, for these things to easily be added onto or co-joined to, if you like, many other services. So, for example, it will start off as being a digital ID card scheme for the right to work, and then, then it will be expanded to the right to vote. And then it will be expanded to, healthcare. Then it will be expanded. Then banks will start saying, well, if you haven't got a digital ID, you can't open a bank account. And then, it will link into DVLA, and they'll say, well, if you haven't got a digital ID, you can't, drive a car. And eventually, with all these different services pegged onto it, and it's so easy to do. I mean, you talk to anybody in IT, they'll tell you that an API is just a bit of code that basically means one machine talks to another. Do you see what I mean? So once the system and the infrastructure is there, it's so easy to do. And what's going to happen, it's going to snowball, and it's going to be a situation whereby your digital ID is basically, a complete government control over your right to live, work, buy, sell, earn money. Now, if I just flip back to I've got another screen up here. In the Bible, the book of Revelation talks about the mark of the beast. That's what it says. This is what it says. It says, in Revelation 13, 16, 17, Scripture warns of a future time when a powerful system will compel all, both great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads. Now, I'm not saying this digital ID is at that stage yet, but you can see where it's all headed, can't you? But no one may buy or sell except who has the mark. For Christians, this is merely not metaphorical, but a prophetic warning of an economic and spiritual captivity linked to allegiance to the Antichrist. Now, I'm going to put another link in the video description of another YouTube video, which I found, spot on, to be honest. And it talks about how Satan, or Lucifer, as he was once called, wasn't content with taking instructions from God, and he wanted to be like the Most High, and set himself above the stars. So, with all his ancient knowledge, what he's done is he's, taken the blueprint from heaven and kind of rolled out like a fake counterfeit system, but it's similar to God's, but not the same. So a good example of that might be, like sort of transgender people, or people who like transgender people. They might think they're getting into a genuine relationship, but it's not the original divine design that God intended. So that's just like one example off the top of my head. So this kind of fake kingdom that Satan's created, a lot of people don't know they're in it, and they're pursuing wealth, they're pursuing careers instead of pursuing God, and unwittingly, knowingly or not, they are kind of aligned to the so-called rebellion that the Bible talks of. Let's get back to this. So when the Bible does not explicitly describe how this, it says, while the Bible does not explicitly describe how this mark will appear, it connects it directly with commerce, control and worship. any technology that enables centralised control over who can buy, sell or participate in society raises red flags for those attuned to prophecy. Now, this new digital ID card, which the Labour Party is going to announce today on the 26th of September 2025, of course, it's not going to be up and running today or next week, but but I think they're going to announce that it's going to be live before the end of this Parliament. The infrastructure is already around, by the way. I mean, it's not that complex, given the way technology's snowballed and stuff to actually get these systems up and running. But given that Sir Keir Starmer, the UK PM, has said that nobody will be able to work without this digital ID, although I don't sort of agree that that is the actual mark of a beast, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? Because what they're saying is you won't be able to work unless you have this not mark, but digital ID card. Okay, so it's going to be mandatory. So if you're an adult, it's mandatory. It's not optional. That's what they're saying. I reckon it's going to get derailed. All the main parties are against it. Reform are growing in popularity. They're against it. Kemi Badenoch's against it, and she reckons there should be a proper national debate about it. Lib Dems are against it. So you can quite easily see how, the Tories, the Lib Dems, and Reform would, if they all joined together, potentially be able to derail this legislation that's planned. The Labour Party did try in 2005 when Tony Blair was in power, to introduce a digital ID scheme, and they did actually just go ahead on the cusp of launching it, but it was very close to an election. And when David Cameron won that election with Nick Clegg, I believe, in the coalition, on day one, the whole project was scrapped, and that was back in actually, Tony Blair tried to introduce it in 2005. Let's get my facts right, and then when David Cameron won the election for the first time, then he scrapped it, and it was the second time we were in the coalition. That kind of ties in with the dates. So, look, it's the Bible says nobody will be able to buy and sell, but if you think about it, if you can't work without having a digital ID, call it what you want, then technically you're not able to sell your services, because when you're working for an employer, be it freelance or on the books, PAYE, you're technically selling your services to an employer. So it needs a bit of thought, doesn't it? I mean, I reckon it's going to get struck down. I don't reckon, because we're a Christian nation in the UK. That's the traditional religion. It always has been in this country. I'm not saying there aren't other religions, but as a Christian, those are the kind of values that the country ascribes to, if you like. You see it in the royal family as well, with the late Queen Elizabeth. She was very pro-Christian. King Charles is a bit more multi-faith, but if you look across the fabric of the country, it's more of a Christian country than, say, like a Hindu country or a Muslim country. Or do you see what I mean? I'm not trying to cause division here. I'm just saying that traditionally that's the way it's always been in this country. So as a result, especially as a result of like the baby boomers who are now in their 70s and 80s and 90s and stuff, they've got it very, very much drilled into them about Christian values and stuff. So the younger people, Generation Z, let's call them, they're a bit more in tune with like apps and paying for stuff on Google Pay, and they're probably more interested in trans rights and stuff like that. So they're probably more likely to go along with it, but certainly people who are like middle-aged, by that I mean 40, 45, 50 upwards, they're sort of more likely to see problems with civil liberties, because once everything's joined up together, voting rights, bank account, passport, driving license, healthcare records, also crucially, if you can't work, you can't get money, so you can't sell your services, and it's just going to be think of it as like an app where additional things are pegged on. So you can't go to a dentist without a digital ID. You can't insure your car without digital ID. You can't. Do you see what I mean? So this is the way it's all going, and for that reason, I think Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservatives in the UK, is absolutely right. There needs to be a proper national debate, with proper scrutiny and lots of consultation and studies, feasibility studies, and all arguments need to be heard. I don't think it's such a big step. I don't think, I appreciate Labour in power, but it's a desperate measure. I don't think we can just announce that it's going to be mandatory without having a proper national debate because of the implications with regard to civil liberties. And look, it's not only about, there's been a lot of hacks recently with Marks and Spencer, Jaguar Land Rover, various airports, Heathrow Airport, etc., etc., etc. So having all that data, your name, your date of birth, your address, and all the rest of it in the cloud, I don't think is safe. Not in the current age. So I think there needs to be like an independent body and proper safeguards to make sure that these systems can't run away with an agenda of their own and be kind of used for more sinister purposes. I mean, what happens, for example, if say the UK eventually joins the European Union, and then all that data is shared with all 28, 30 countries or whatever it is of the European Union, or if all the NATO countries join together. I mean, that's one of the other things that's mentioned in the Book of Revelation, that many countries will join together to create a new world order. At some point, and at that stage all these systems will be interlinked and you won't be able to work or buy or sell, and it's like a kind of captivity. It's like a kind of modern day slavery. And I've always said that I enjoy working in technology and stuff, or certainly the marketing side of it and the strategy and the creativity side of things. I love that. But if you can't work without having to have all your details on a central government database, which could be shared with other central governments, I think I don't think it's viable. I just don't think it's where we're at. Because every country is different, every government's different, and there will come a time when the Bible talks all these countries will come together. So I think there's going to be a lot of resistance towards this. I can see the logic of it. I think it's a good idea to have some kind of scheme, universal scheme. So by that I mean, maybe have, because at the moment people's national insurance numbers are not linked to any photographic ID. So that might be a good idea. But does it need to be a digital ID? And do you see what I mean? There's all kinds of problems with it, how it can be expanded very rapidly with or without consent right across the country to different agencies, different government services, benefits, housing benefit, or getting a council house or whatever if you haven't got this so-called digital ID. So I do think there's a lot of issues with it. And that's only a prediction. My prediction is that it will get struck down in the House of Commons, or because Labour are trailing in the polls. People are unhappy with the way the country's going. We've got a budget from hell coming on the 26th of November because they've got to find loads more money. And Keir Starmer's popularity is plummeting like an asteroid plummeting towards Earth. And, although I don't agree with everything Nigel Farage says, I can understand why his party is getting a lot more votes and seats and popularity, because people are discontented, with the current status quo. So it's like a protest vote. They're voting that way or leaning towards those kinds of parties because they're fed up with the Labour government. And look, as I said, I haven't got the exact numbers in front of me now, but I wouldn't be surprised if, the Lib Dems, the Tories and Reform join together, in a kind of really strict way, and with none of those MPs breaking ranks. They might even be able to defeat it if there was a vote in that, which there probably will have to be a vote in the House of Commons on it. I can't see it getting through in its current form. I really can't, And if it did, there'd be hell up, because it is an erosion of civil liberties. There's a fine balance between, controlling migration and having everyone's personal details on a government database on a mandatory basis and been told that you can't work if you don't comply. So that's where I think it's going to run into problems, and I don't think it'll get through. We'll see. I mean, it's going to be announced today, but seriously, I've got my wise shoulder, or old head on wise shoulders, I think is the phrase. I've been around for a while, and I just know that all the political parties are against it. It didn't get through in 2005. And without it being drastically watered down and refought with plenty of safeguards, it's not going to get through without major reforms being placed on it and major safeguards being attached to it as well. So look, let's just read a little bit more off the screen before I finish the video. So digital ID systems are not in themselves equivalent to the mark of the beast. However, the way they are developed could set the stage for something much greater and more sinister. That's exactly what I said. Consider how they might evolve financial integration. Many governments are exploring digital currencies. Yeah, you see, like the American economy is technically bankrupt. They've just extended the debt ceiling by $3 trillion through Donald Trump's big and beautiful bills. And there's many other countries which have got debt at 100% of GDP or more. So, it's going to be so convenient for these countries to just say, right, well, we're ditching the national currency and now we're using the digital pound or the digital franc or the digital dirham or the digital dollar. Yeah, do you see what I mean? Because they can just reset these currencies and, the central bank can just click a few buttons on a computer and balance the books and make debts disappear or appear or whatever the case may be. Whereas with physical cash, you can't really do that because it's physical cash and it's got to be accounted for. So, like many governments are exploring digital currencies linked to digital IDs. If tied together, access to your money could be granted or denied based on compliance with state or global mandates. You see, that's worrying. I mean, that's a clear sign of, what Scripture talks of the mark of a beast. Surveillance state. With biometric and behavioural data attached to a digital ID, authorities could track individuals' movements, purchases and even online activity. You may get to a stage where you can't have a social media account without a digital ID, and you see what I mean? Massive state surveillance, and I can see why so many people wouldn't be happy with this, to be honest. Conditional access. A digital ID could be required for work. Well, it will be required for work because what Keir Starmer's saying, this is why I don't think it's going to get through. He's saying if you don't have a digital ID, you can't work. But everyone's got the right to work, just like everyone's got the right to drink water. I mean, it's an absolute nonsense that you have to have all your details on the government database and comply with whatever they say to be able to work, because you can't sell your services without complying. So a digital ID could be required for work, healthcare, education and travel. In effect, without it, one would be excluded from society, echoing Revelation's warning about not being able to buy or sell. Yeah, so it's coming, isn't it? I mean, it's already here. I mean, it's going to be announced today. I honestly think there's going to be a proper national debate in Parliament about it before it becomes live, and I think it will be watered down with many more safeguards built in. I don't think it's going to wash to have this kind of digital ID as it is, unchecked, where the government basically has complete control over people's lives. Because that's what it is. It's like modern day slavery. Global compliant governance. If digital IDs become globally standardised, which they will, many countries have already got them, by the way, it could be the first step towards a single system of identification, possibly aligning with the beast system of Revelation. Next, the spiritual dimension. The mark of a beast is not just a physical or digital token. It represents allegiance and worship. Revelation makes clear that acceptance of this mark is tied to acknowledging the authority of the Antichrist and rejecting Jesus Christ. So that's quite a powerful step. I'll just read that again. Revelation, book of Revelation in the Bible, makes clear that acceptance of this mark is tied to acknowledging the authority of the Antichrist and rejecting Jesus Christ. Heavy words, yeah? A digital ID in itself may not carry that spiritual dimension, but if society evolves towards making such an ID mandatory for survival, well, it's certainly headed that way, because if you can't work without it, then that's a major step towards that. It could set the precedent for people willingly submitting to a system that denies God's sovereignty. I'll just read this very last bit before I close the video. So Christians must remain spiritually vigilant, discerning not only the technology trajectory, but also the spiritual compromises these systems could demand. What starts as convenience and efficiency could one day morph into coercion and worship of worldly power. So look, I'll leave it there. I've said enough. Look, if you think about China, they're very kind of anti-Christian, and people can get arrested for preaching the Bible or even going to church, and you know, with that being one of the world's superpowers, you know, if we get to the stage, if we get to a stage one day where, you know, Russia, China, United States and Europe and Asia Pacific, you know, all link these systems together, then you could find yourself in quite an awkward, impossible situation where you can't buy or sell. Not being able to sell also includes not being able to work, because you can't sell your services to earn money. So look, it's a massive step, and it's got massive implications, and there's obviously going to be a massive debate about it. None of the other major political parties agree with it, and I know most of the British public, whilst they might agree with the immediate principle of, you know, proving your right to work, I'm sure they can see the danger of it being morphed into something else without consent, so that the government have got complete control. So look, I'll leave that one there. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I've managed to rabble this one off without looking at the screen too much, because, you know, I'm quite kind of passionate about it. But look, everyone's got certain human rights, you know, living and breathing, drinking water, you know, having the right to eat, you know, and the right to work, obviously, you know, if they can find a job. But, you know, it doesn't need to be tied to a central government database. That's the question I want to leave you with. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.